Welcome, James. Thanks for talking to us today about heavy asset and maintenance supply chains.
Great to be here. Thanks, Matt.
We've recently seen an incredible amount of investment in national infrastructure. What's the next challenge?
Oh, look, it has been amazing. I mean, the well-coined infrastructure boom. When you look around our cities, the new rail networks, new roads, obviously the NBN went in some time ago. So it's been incredible. And that's sort of being backed up now by, the investments in a lot of the renewables technology. So it really has been incredible in terms of the building of those assets. The challenge now is, though, obviously then the sustainment of those assets or the maintenance of them. How do we do that in a way which minimises, the life cycle cost of that asset, but also ensures, really high levels of availability for those assets. So really interesting times now to get that balance right.
Right. And what are some of the complexities?
A lot of the assets that I'm sort of referring to are large networks, so they're often quite dispersed. The technology embedded in them can be really quite complicated. The skills required to maintain it from an engineering perspective can be complex. And the equipment itself, a lot of these items, especially some of the new technologies, are on quite long lead times. So when you think about then how our supply chain responds, where do we hold inventory, how do we balance preventative maintenance versus any breakdown and our responsiveness. And that's all in the context of the consumer or the citizen's desire for availability of most of this sort of equipment is really high. So we need to be able to respond quickly if there are issues with it, which really just adds to that level of complexity.
So what can be done to improve the situation?
It's obviously a variety of assets that I'm referring to, and everything from some very old water technologies, for example, that were put in years ago, all the way through to some of the newest elements that have been added to the NBN, etc. So quite a broad spectrum. And what we see is that different assets and organisations are at different levels of maturity. So right from not really knowing necessarily the exact asset in the ground, so till you dig it up, you're not quite sure, and that's because it's been there for a long time, all the way through to some assets having internet devices that are able to sort of signal how well it's performing and when it's got issues. So it's quite a spectrum. But really the opportunity we see is to stand back and take a look at where you are in terms of the maintenance of those assets, looking at the data, the systems, the processes, and just the organisational capability and saying, right, are there opportunities to increase or maintain availability at a lower price? And also, there's some smarts that we can put in place around scenario planning and modelling, which can also really help in optimising the maintenance of those assets.
Yeah, makes sense. So what are some of the barriers to these improvements?
A lot of the barriers tend to be, some of these assets have been in place for a long time. So, sort of realisation that we can do things differently and really getting focused on what would be the benefits of doing it differently. So are we genuinely going to be able to increase or maintain availability? Are we going to be able to reduce our life cycle costs or our inventory costs, etc.? So, part of the challenge is getting a roadmap that really is focused on delivering those things and being quite clear about how we stage gate the implementation. So, if it's new systems, is it just about data? All of those sorts of things need to move in lockstep to actually unlock those benefits. And so really being able to get an organisational commitment to some of those elements can be quite challenging.
Where should organisations start on this improvement journey?
It's quite a spectrum of organisations, but we always advise on starting with a diagnostic. Most people have a sense as to how they're operating today and what they're doing, and then really looking at what could we do into the future. And not everyone needs to do everything at a sort of world-class level. It might be just some incremental improvements warranted. But that then really sets the framework to say, okay, well now what do we need to do in order to deliver upon those improvements? And that enables you to structure up a business case and a roadmap to be able to go about those improvements. So really that process is really important in this space.
Yeah, thanks, James. Appreciate your time today.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt.